Today what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a kind of a crash course in blocking punches and kicks. So there's two different ways, in my opinion, to defend against a punch or a kick. One is to evade it. So for example, if a jab comes at me, I evade it, right? So in this scenario, when the jab comes, I'm slipping it to the outside by taking my left foot and rotating like that. If he was to throw a straight right hand at me, I could evade it by taking my right foot and twisting. That also gives me opportunities where if he throws a straight right at me and I evade it this way, I can come back with a very powerful hook. Okay, same thing with the jab. He throws a straight jab, I evade it here, and I can come back with a very powerful right hand. So that's kind of one way to evade punches. Going underneath punches is also something that we can do. The thing about going underneath punches in a mixed martial arts setting is it really only makes sense up against a cage, or you might be able to pull it off one time and then shoot a takedown. So if I throw a bit like a kind of a wild right hand and Ryan gets underneath it here, he can do that, right? So you can roll underneath a punch. The problem is in mixed martial arts is if he keeps doing this like he's some good boxer and he's always rolling underneath punches, he's gonna run into knees right there, see? Or he might run into high kicks. So rolling underneath punches usually happens against a cage or against a wall or something like that. One way that we can block a punch is actually to absorb a punch. And so like let's say a strong right hand comes at me, go ahead, throw a straight right hand at me. I can absorb that punch by bringing my hand to my head like this. I don't want to have my hand out and block it because it'll just come back and hit me. But if I put my chin down and my hand here, I can absorb that punch. The human body's not meant to take that over and over and over again, but if you get yourself here in a good strong stance, your shoulders up, your chin down, you can take one hard punch, go ahead, and then fire back with counters, okay? I see that with the hook a lot. The mistake I see with the hook is when people throw a hook punch. Go ahead and throw a hook to my head. No, a hook punch. They do this. See how I brought my arm up? Because that's a mistake that I see. Throw the hook punch, land it. Land it anywhere, go ahead. I want to have my elbow down and my hand open. So if he's hitting me in the body, go ahead. I shield that. If he's hitting me in the head, no, a hook punch, I shield the hook, right? So go ahead and keep throwing hooks. So that's how I absorb the hook. Oh, there you go. Okay, so I don't want to get hit by too many of those. But that's how I defend the hook punch. I can absorb it like that. Of course, you could slip underneath the hook punch. You could go underneath the hook punch too. But once again, that's much harder to do, harder to pull off that timing, and it usually happens more when you're up against something. The reason it happens when you're up against something is because here my punches are long. When we go here, follow us here. When we go up against a cage or something, I'm not going to be throwing these long punches. I'm going to be right here. So now I'll start throwing more hooking punches. Go ahead and roll underneath it. There like that, okay? Now, a roundhouse kick. Absorbing a roundhouse kick is really easy. When he throws a kick to my midsection, I'm going to take my elbow and touch it to my hip, and I'm going to bring my hand here. If I was to block a kick like this, go ahead and kick kind of like, like that, he's going to break my arm. And I've seen people actually have their arms broken right in half by hard kicks. But if I put my arm against my body, it absorbs the kick. It's kind of like holding a board out to break a board. If I hold a board like this, and he'll kick right through it. If I hold the board against my body, the board won't break, right? So what I'm doing is I'm keeping my forearm against my body and absorbs that whole kick, right? Give me a good one. Again. And this is something where he'll kick me, I'll absorb it, and then I'll counter right away. So I make him miss, and then I make him pay. Okay, those are some very fundamentals in blocking punches and kicks.